Drug dealing can teach you a lot about running a fashion brand. I love the takeaway from this video, serving your base. It gave me a greater understanding and a greater appreciation for fashion and design at its core. James Jenard, founder of Oakley, simplifies what he thinks is the optimal road for entrepreneurial success. He says, do something that has never been done before, then let people know. It sounds simple, it sounds, I guess, two-dimensional without nuance. The more you understand Oakley and the more you understand the core of it, you really do understand what he meant by this statement. Just how much the core of the brand was around presenting, about introducing new work, was about pushing the boundaries of design and concepts. In 1975, iconoclastic by nature, Jenard wanted to be a supplier instead of just an avid fan or just someone within the community. He was a fan of the motocross community and he wanted to get into the grips business. So 1975, he started Oakley.
From my recollection, Oakley started with Jim Jenard. He was frustrated going to school and decided not to do that.
And Oakley originally provided grips for motocross bikes. And if there's one thing we can agree on, that is the importance of a good grip. I want to take you back to the 1950s, because the 1950s is when the rubber grips was first introduced to the motocross bikes and the motocross culture. The 1960s was the boom, essentially, of the motocross culture, and that was the first time the grips saw any kind of development apart from when Oakley introduction took place. And I kind of want to highlight this because as much as there's design genius, ingenuity, and sleepless nights, hard work that goes into creating a legendary brand that is Oakley, we cannot underestimate and discredit the importance of timing. Oakley started in 1975 and the boom of the motocross culture globally was the 1960s. So you can understand where there was impeccable timing. There was impeccable timing where introduction of the brand was concerned and the development of this at one point niche culture. The first grips, the Oakley Gen 1s, was octopusy. The first grip from Oakley was an octopus-like design. I don't really have the specific name for it, but when I find it, I'll just pull it up. And they used a rubber compound called Unobtainium 52, I believe. And now I want to talk about rubbers. Okay, I'm seeing the direction this video is going, and I don't like it. It's gross. It's gross. It's not becoming of the mature adult that I like to think of myself as. Oakley at this point placed a lot of emphasis on the design of their rubber compounds. There's Unobtainium 45, there's Unobtainium 50, there's Unobtainium 52, there's Unobtainium 49. And all of these have different properties and different uses. Some of the compounds are stiffer, some of the compounds are better in certain temperatures, some of the compounds are softer. They all play different utility in different environments, for different sports, for different reasons, and for different hands. This is the defining design aspect that would then follow Oakley into all of its other design ventures. I want to spend some time talking about the truth behind innovation.
When I came to work at Oakley, we were still a grip company, but we weren't evolving anymore.
Oakley was constantly regarded and praised for their innovative design approach and their new futuristic design methods. But there's a lot that goes behind design, and one that can make it a daunting, haunting, cruel process, or one that is enjoyable for masochists. Fashion designers in a lot of ways are industrial designers, balancing form and function, even marrying the two so that form facilitates and contributes to function. This comes with the woes of trial and error in a market where the equipment being used weighs heavily on the functionality of it. These items need to work. Health and safety is at risk here. The first model that is usually introduced from a brand typically isn't the final model that we see. We see this a lot of times when countless brands, you even see it with Apple and Samsung when they were like selling these terrorist phones that was like blowing up in niggas' pockets. This is because of live testing, or I think I made up live testing, but when I say live testing, I'm talking about the real life, the in real world situations and circumstances that you sometimes cannot factor in when you are doing controlled in-house testing of these items. When you're designing pants, shirts, whatever it may be, sometimes you run all the tests you can in lab, in office, but it's only when this thing is now introduced into the environment, when it's experiencing different climates, different climates, different atmospheres, different people, different sweats. Like all of these play a part into how your fabric reacts and interacts with the environment and the person, and then you now get certain information and feedback that you would not have found before. It's like findings. It's kind of like doing a psychological or any kind of scientific study. It's only when it's now placed into the studying and the environmental aspect of it, then you receive new findings that you were not able to cater for initially. A great example of the woes that come with innovation is the first pair of grips, the Oakley Gen 1. The Oakley Gen 1 had the original Oakley logo, a knobby tire as the letter O placed on the tab of each end, initially placed to aid your leverage but becoming a deterrent to riders getting in the way of pulling back the throttle. Creating a design comes with all of these unexpected malfunctions, and it's up to the designer and manufacturer to resolve the current owner's issues and prevent the issue from future models being sold. When you look at the Oakley Gen 2, there was an implementation of a new rubber element and a new thermonuclear protection logo. I wrote so much for this video, but I think it overwhelmed me and now I can't remember lines. So we're gonna just have to go with this. Another instance of Oakley, I guess, trial and error process where design is concerned is the O-frames. The O-frames was their first attempt at goggles, at ski goggles specifically. So it was meant for the slopes. However, there was a problem. It would fog up a lot to the point where athletes weren't able to properly see the slopes while wearing it. So functionally it was rendered useless. Thankfully, BMX riders liked it and it found a home strapped to the top of the helmets of BMX riders. So it found a home aesthetically, but where functionally is concerned, there was still a lot of work to be done on the Oakley O-frames. All in all, what I'm trying to say is when serving your community and trying to produce an item that is innovative, designs fail. This happens, but if it's your design and you truly care about it, you have to put the effort in. You have to put that extra bad mind, that extra oomph in, that this design issue and malfunction is rectified, because simply put, somebody have to fix it and it's your product. Just another example, the eye jackets by Oakley went through 150 prototypes before the finalized design.
But I think all of the injection molding and that process, I really think that that's what motivated Jim to do the eyewear, you know, with starting out with goggles.
Speaking of goggles, accessories are one of the more lucrative businesses to enter in fashion. It's easier to mass produce and replicate. It's cheaper to produce and it's easier to store in like larger quantities. 1980s saw the introduction of the first pair of Oakley frames mentioned above, the O-frames. 1983 to 1984 debuted the first sunglasses, the factory pilot eye shades. The experimental nature of the brand was already present at creation, but I think this is the point where the visual identity thrived, because sunglasses and eyewear says more about stamping your identity than hand grips. Visor-like lenses made specifically for sports. I would say that the eyewear era of Oakley is where the brand really adopted the newer futuristic aesthetic that we've attached to the name.
So I interpret this thing. Tout le monde sait qu'est-ce que c'est une tête. Everybody knows what is an arc. But I want also to analyze what is an arc.
Neofuturism is a late 20th, early 21st architectural style that was evolved out of high-tech structural design ideas and concepts. A departure from skeptical and referential style of postmodernism, neofuturism boils down to the dreams and idealistic visions had for the future. I read that somewhere and I like it. Very grey, very gadgety, very smooth. The origins are foggy to me while reading. There are too many names bounced around dating back to Finnish architects Alvar Aalto, Erin Saarinen, as well as Danish architects Henning Larsen, John Utzon, Buckminster Fuller, and Arkingham. I butchered every single one of those names, and I'm sorry. Neurofuturism architecture utilizes organic shapes and smooth surfaces. Joints and silhouettes featuring curves, spheres, domes, spirals, and flowing lines as opposed to sharp corners, straight lines, and flat surfaces. Neurofuturism goes further than smooth shapes and addresses the incorporation of technological advancements of materials and techniques into the structure of the design, like carbon fibers, concrete, steels, and glass facade. The methodology of Neurofuturism in Oakley goes beyond the aesthetic and into the way in which the brand builds their frame. Starting with the lenses, once condemned during the experimental stage of the ski goggles for fogging up on slopes, Oakley lenses are now praised for their advanced edge in performance by athletes. Oakley had a few design philosophies that followed them throughout the brand.
Starting Oakley with little more than $300 and an obsessive drive that everything can and will be made better.
Jannard was referred to as a mad scientist. I'm not going to call him that because I'm not calling no nigga mad scientist. However, he was given this name because of his approach to design and problem solving. He always took an unorthodox, iconoclastic approach to either solving an issue or designing his creating his designs. Everything can and will be made better. The question is by whom? That's a statement made by Jannard, and it's so true. Like, you think about gatekeeping, like gatekeeping is a big topic, particularly within my generation, within social media. Like preventing someone from accessing information about a thing that you might like or knowledge that you have on a particular thing. And when you stop and you think about gatekeeping, it doesn't do anything apart from letting people know that you are a dickhead, because information is out there and information is out there, and the means to acquire it is as accessible to you as it is to someone else. And if something was to be developed upon, it will be developed upon, whether you assist the person in doing it or they go out on their own and find the means to do it. You aren't preventing anything as much as you think you are. You're only deterring it for a very short period of time, and that now hinders your personal development. Talking about the most iconic frames, in my opinion, from the brand, the OTTs, which is the over-the-tops, Jannard said, we were just on an island and we discarded everything that we knew. And my thing with designers is, I love designers, and I really enjoy listening to them, reading their podcasts and learning from them. But they say anything sometimes. They were just on an island, discarding everything we knew. But at the same time, the over the top was referenced from two of their more popular frames. So what did you discard? What did you discard? The two existing Oakley silhouettes was the Time Bomb watch and the Pro M frame. I believe he was more referring to the idea itself regarding everything that they've done before, where eyewear, grips, and all those other intangibles, all those other procedural understandings that they have. They discarded those. I'm gonna stay on that side and model after the shape of the skull so that it will have like a proper snug fit on the cranium. It was debuted at the 2000 Sydney World Olympics, where this other nigger and Atto Boulton wore it during their races. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to the other guy, but let's be honest. When we think about Oakley and we think about the over-the-top frames and we think about athletes wearing it, we think about Atto Boulton. We think about the Caribbean legend. We think about the Trinidadian legend, Atto Boulton. Another one of Oakley's design philosophy was seek out problems, create solutions, and wrap it in art and design. This one was interesting to me because I just learned about this, or I guess I just heard about this or read about it in the book Steal Like an Artist. It's either Steal Like an Artist or the second Wanted, which is, I think it's Keep Going. And the author was saying essentially, anytime you feel like complaining, like keep your words in. Don't complain verbally, but complain through your art or complain through the work that you do. So if you have an issue with how something is being run, your way of complaining should be to create something where it's run differently. If you have an issue with how something is portrayed or how something is illustrated or how something is designed, you complain by creating art or you create the solution for it instead of verbally complaining, because you take the same amount of energy to do both, and one is more productive where the other one is just ego masturbation. Peter Yee, industrial designer for Oakley, who started sometime in 1993 initiating the Zero collection, was mainly responsible for the design of the eye jackets released in 1994. If the over-the-tops was coined as the most iconic frame Oakley has produced, the eye jackets are definitely the frames that catalyzed the shift of Oakley into the neo-futuristic aesthetic of the brand, from the build and the silhouette to the marketing and the affiliations. The silhouette of the eye jackets screamed neo-futurism. The bold oval shape was relatively new to a lot of consumers in the market, as sunglasses at that time were typically mostly geometric straight lines and harsh touch corners. This seems all part of the plan, as 1992, the brand invested in a 3D printer, becoming the first sportswear brand to do so at the time. Following the money, you can see that Oakley was still pouring a lot of their resources into the innovation and the unorthodox designing method of the brand. They were still pouring a lot of their finances into how can we design something that has never been seen before? How can we solve a problem? I was not in a meeting with Peter Yee. However, I think it's very safe to say that he played a very crucial part in the design direction of Oakley. You can see from the time that he came on and the revolution or the evolution of the brand from that point. Also being a recent graduate from SCAD, I believe. Oh no, I just made that up. Also being a recent graduate of industrial design, he was Oakley's first official industrial designer. We can go on and on about the great design feats of Oakley, especially within the eye jackets, but I think it wouldn't be justice to talk about the eye jackets without talking about the two athletes that were the backbone of the eye jackets, pushing the neo-futuristic aesthetic of the brand. That would be Michael Jordan, because he was featured in the ad, and it would be Dennis Rodman for being Dennis Rodman, for being the style icon he is, and revolutionizing what people would have accepted as fashion norms and acceptable gender norms where fashion is concerned. Dennis Rodman is responsible for some of the coolness and the extreme edge that came with Oakley. I'm saying that. Doesn't have to be true, but that's what I feel. I think because of all these factors and the marketing behind it, it's no surprise that Oakley was featured so many times in so many of American blockbuster films. Oakley represented that independent, counterculture, extremely experimental and venturesome brand. I think when you take some of those characteristics with the neo-futurism and the extreme athleticism, it's no surprise why so many movies wanted to have Oakley featured in it. Just having the Oakley there, just having one of the frames there will kind of shape your perception of the film, shape your perception of the character that you're looking at, make you watch them from a different lens, make you, I guess, understand them a little bit without anyone having to say anything, without the actor having to explain themselves, and without the writer having to put something in place for them to literally verbally express the type of person they are. You just get it. This is a brand that would have worked perfectly in anime like Cyborg 009, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, Akira, Ghost in a Shell, Cowboy Bebop. I can go on and on about Oakley, but I'm kind of tired. I could go on and on about the feats, but I'm tired, specifically pulling things right now to give you an idea of the mental position of men and women responsible for the creation of the frames. The X-Metal series are made from titanium stemming from Jannard's fascination in the material. They aim to make an indestructible eyewear according to Yee. When we're nothing but bones and dust, the frames will still physically be around. They went to the lengths of developing their own manufacturing location for it, seeing as no one was willing to do it. The first pair from the series was the Romeo, which went on to be another popular, staple, memorable frame of the brand. Yee talks a lot about the design environment of Oakley. He says the environment was such that it ensured designers to produce their work and not be ashamed of proposing unorthodox, crazy ideas. Because it's better to propose these unorthodox ideas and it not being the right fit at this point in time than not proposing it at all, because these ideas are what generates the culture of Oakley. So it may not work right now, but the fact that you are contributing it lets others know that they can also contribute these kind of strange ideas, which then continues the cycle of innovation.